Welcome to week 2 of your English 1010 course. I hope that you found last week's assignments interesting, and it was a good way to sort of introduce yourself to the course and what's required of you. Once again, we do work rather rapidly, and there is a bit more of a workload because it is a summer term. So I hope that you're pacing yourselves and that you are getting the work done in a timely way. As far as grades go, I usually, it just depends. I often wait till the day after assignments close, which would be next Tuesday, to actually begin grading some of the assignments, simply because, for example, in a discussion board where you're asked to respond to 2 different students, a lot of people, especially if you are waiting until that Monday before the due date, which I hope you're not doing, but if you're doing that, a lot of times, you haven't actually responded to 2 additional posts, and so I can't actually give you credit at that time until after the assignments have closed. Okay, I will enter zeros for any assignments that you miss. But do remember that we do have a grace period a little bit later in the semester, so that you can go back and make up no more than 3 small assignments at that time, should you happen to miss something. All right, let's talk about week 2's assignments. We're going to go to the lessons tab here, and I had to go back and make the assignments available. Sorry about that. Your week 2 folder, please notice that I always summarize the contents of the folder on the outside of it. So it's a good idea, once again, if you're following my advice about opening the assignments early in the week after they become open on that Tuesday morning at 8 o'clock, and taking a look at what's required, and that way sort of planning ahead instead of and seeing how much time it's going to take you, and trying to divide that up over a couple of times during the week. Once again, I do not recommend waiting to the last minute on the Monday when things are due to do assignments, because they're rarely done well, or certainly not to the best of your ability. So anyway, week 2 will always summarize on the outside of the folder essentially the assignments that you have that semester. For that week. Select week 2, and first assignment is a descriptive writing assignment. It's actually a little bit of practice. There's a lesson in there's a YouTube video. It's very short. I think it's about 4 minutes that talks about descriptive writing. And then there's a PowerPoint that I've created that will walk you through what I mean by showing, not telling. A lot of English teachers, we say this a lot to students, and this applies to business writing as much as it does to any other type of writing. You want to be very specific and use very concrete information. As I read through have read through your diagnostic essays for this week, one of the things I noticed, and I don't comment on it because it's not something I asked from you for this particular assignment. I just wanted to get a writing sample. But some of you are very detailed, very specific. You give names, you talk about dates, you talk about places, and you describe things nicely. That's what we mean about showing rather than telling. Others of you are very general. You'll talk about having a certain experience, but you'll never name say the person or the job that you had, or there's nothing concrete there that a reader can picture in his or her mind. And what you want to do, effective writing is detailed writing. Now, there is such a thing as having too much detail, but quite frankly, I find most students whom I teach err to the opposite end of that spectrum, which is they don't have enough detail. So I can give you a very brief example, and I provide an example in this PowerPoint, but if I told you that last night I got home and watched television and went to bed fairly early, that's telling you what happened last night. Instead, if I said I finally got home from work at 7 o'clock after I had an appointment at 4, I was exhausted, I had to pick up my dog from the dog sitter, I got home, I collapsed on the couch basically without even changing clothes, and I turned on my favorite show, American Idol, which it's not. But if I turned on my favorite show at 8 o'clock and watched that until about 9, realized I was about to fall asleep on the couch, so I got up, put my dog up, and went to bed at 9:15, which is early for me. can you tell the difference between those two examples? Okay, the first one, yeah, I told you what I did, but there was nothing in there that you could connect to. My going to bed early is different from maybe from what it means for you to go to bed early. So I just left you free to figure out whatever that meant for you. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about descriptive writing and showing rather than telling. It's not just adding, the red dress, the red chiffon dress, adding more details like that. It's also being very, very specific and concrete in what you're talking about. All right. And then finally, you have a discussion board that actually has you apply this information that you've learned about descriptive writing. All right. The second lesson, it's not even a lesson. It's a PowerPoint that talks about developing paragraphs, and it talks about anytime you have to write something that has an introduction, it talks about how to develop that introductory paragraph, and it talks about what a thesis statement is. And I know a lot of you, this is review for you, and that's great. Others of you, it's either been a long time and you really don't remember these concepts, or you never learned them to begin with. This course is not, you're not going to do a lot of essay writing, which has more to do with college. If you were going on for an associate's degree, we are going to focus more on business writing, which is more practical for you. But be aware that a lot of the information in this particular Shaping an Essay PowerPoint does apply to any type of writing that you're doing when you're trying to develop a paragraph. Okay, and then the next assignment is has to do with what you began last week with your invention strategies, and that is taking that information that you got from doing the free writing and answering those questions: who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. I don't think they included how. That's called the reporter's formula, by the way. If you read any newspaper article, you will notice that in the first two paragraphs they will always answer those 5 questions: who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. Okay, and the whole point of those invention strategies were to stimulate your thinking, so that you could prepare and get some things down on paper for this first assignment, which is a personal narrative blog. Now, a narrative is telling a story, but notice that narratives can be used not just in a personal way, but also in a professional way. For example, when I go to my doctor, he has this little dictaphone, so after our session, he will start dictating into this recorder, which will then be transcribed, I guess, on a computer. But he'll say, patient presented with 99-degree fever, complained of headache, blah, blah, blah. And so that's a narrative. He is telling the story of our encounter. Okay. I hope this never happens to you, but if for some reason you're in a wreck, the police officer will take all of your information, and then what he or she does is write up a narrative, the details. The Chevy Suburban was driving south on I-75 when, that's a narrative. It's an objective narrative. It tells a story. Now, what I'm asking you to write is a subjective narrative. So this is personal. This is your story about some first in your life. Okay, so the information in this folder will, and you select it, it will open up and it will give you the information about the assignment itself. There's a reading assignment about having a thesis, because you do need a controlling idea in this blog. There's a video that explains the assignment, a very short one that I have recorded for you. And then this is the blog itself. If you select this, okay, notice that these are your options. It's a little bit different. It's set up a little bit differently from a discussion board. What you do is select the green box, create blog entry. You do need to give it a title, okay? Then, because I don't think it will save it without a title. And then you need to type whatever your blog is. Now, if you want to type it in advance and then copy and paste it here, or even save it as a Word document, and then there is a place where you can attach a file, as you see right here where it says Browse My Computer. You can actually attach your blog, because I know a lot of us rely on like the spell check feature in Microsoft Word. It will also frequently identify technical errors. So if you want to type it first and then attach it, you may do that as well. Okay, and then you'll notice here in the bottom corner, it asks you to, let me lower that a little bit, post your entry. So make sure to select post your entry when you're finished with it. Now, you do have the option of beginning it and then coming back to it later. So if you wanted to come back to it and make changes, you want to select this option, Save Entry as Draft. Okay, and then you can return to it at some point. All right, so hopefully this is enough overview so that you understand what I'm asking for you to do. There's one final activity in the week 2 lesson, and this is just to get you prepared for the lesson on major sentence errors. This is a pretest that I want you to take, and it just shows me what you understand about writing complete sentences versus sentence fragments and different types of run-on sentences. It's not for a grade. It's just an indication to you and to me what you know. And then you'll actually have your lesson on these types of technical errors next week. Please understand that professional writers will use sentence fragments for certain effects. And it is possible to write, for example, there's a short story by William Faulkner called The Bear, and there's one part of that short story that goes on for 4 pages before there's ever a period. It's like stream of consciousness, the way we think one idea after another without stopping. And but when you're writing for business, all right, especially, or when you're writing at the academic level, you want to be sure that you are using complete sentences. And so that's the reason we're going to focus on this particular type of error. All right, those are the lessons for this week. You have until the following Monday night, which is the 3rd, I think it's June the 3rd, to complete these lessons. Please, as always, contact me if you ever have questions or concerns, and have a good week.